Okay, when I am asked to do something like this, particularly this, I take it seriously because this is one of the few areas of my life that I put my career on the line a few times, which is why I never had a traditional career. And as I thought about this, I thought, the issue is not about drugs, for me. And I thought it was for a number of years. And then I began to realize the issue is about freedom. The issue is about living in a culture, in a world that either encourages and develops freedom or contracts and restricts it. And we're in a time historically where it's pretty obvious the way it is, but it's also obvious that as Christopher Fry said once, the ice of centuries, in this case maybe since 2000, is beginning to break. And as the ice breaks, there's a lot of exciting things that are happening. And what I want to talk about tonight is a whole lot of those possibilities. And I also want to find out more, if you're willing, why you're here or what you're really doing here. Federal agents, did you get the discount? Federal agents, please. Used to be when, in the very old days, the federal agents were the ones who looked like federal agents. You remember J. Edgar Hoover had a thing about costumes for himself, but for the agents, they all looked like they were as straight as you could possibly be. And so it was wonderful. You'd look out at a group like this, and you just, you knew who to talk to at the break and who not to sell to. So how did this happen? I mean, why am I here? Why did I come from California for this twisted spring that you've sprung on me outside? I deliberately picked a time of year when I said, boy, New York's going to be just divine. And it's divine if you like this kind of weather. And I wrote Jonathan and I said, let's do something, because he said, let's do something. And to remind folks that just because we're banned, illegal, and full of love for all beings, that we're not gone or forgotten. And in a sense, we're a vast undercover part of this country. And the number of people who will know what I'm talking about if we went and just walked around both down here and up on the east side is so much larger than you think. When I first put out the novel, when you first put out a novel, you have no shame. And so whoever I was next to, within about 30 seconds, I let them know they had a chance to get this novel. And thus, the damnedest people would say, oh yeah, once in college, I ran naked down the streets of my college town saying, what are you all doing hiding in your clothes? But that was a long time ago. And then they'd say that, they were now dealing with the International Monetary Fund and they were screwing some small country into building a dam that it didn't need. And it was fascinating. Well, I wrote that to Jonathan, and Jonathan wrote back. He said, I'm not sure what my fantasy is either, except for a slight turn of the wheel to steer this culture away from entheogenophobia. Cool word. I would like to see a response to Zehner's diatribe. Zehner was an Oxford professor jerk in the 60s who wrote a book that said, even if these experiences are real, which they're not, they're all bad. And I know because I had a bad experience once. It's kind of like, I had sex once, wasn't very good. No one is having sex. And he thought we should deal with that and to have a celebration and appreciation of Wasson's work. Gordon Wasson was a Wall Street banker who ended up taking psilocybin from a curandera in Mexico and having a wonderful experience. And out of that, an amazing set of events began to happen, covers of Life magazine, of his trip, just a host of fascinating events, of which Harvard and Tim Leary and Dick Alpert Ram Dass played large parts and so forth. So we should appreciate Wasson. An update of current science research, and I'll cover it real quick because it ain't much, which is, hurrah, going our way. That's meaning from, on a scale of 1 to 1,000, it's at 1. But that's better than zero and worse, which is what we've been for a lot of decades. And a look back at the golden age of research, as well as a wistful look at the lost years with a look forward to legislative change. Now, there has been legislative change. There is, again, a very important thing that's happened legislatively, which the government isn't totally preventing people from freedom of religion. They're doing it as tightly as possible, but they're acknowledging that freedom of religion actually is part of the system, even if it's a religion that the government freaks out about. Now, the government has not supported this at all, but the Supreme Court actually said, guys, cool it. Now, I'll give you a little secret. What was appealing to several of the Supreme Court justices who you normally hate was their right-wing covert Christianity, which is sufficiently right-wing that if it were well understood, it would not be any more popular with us than what we do is with them. And so there was a freedom of religion made very subtly and very psychologically smartly that kind of triggered parts of their belief system that they didn't want their particular religious niche screwed up. And so they are allowing some of us to have ours, and it is very exciting for that. Well, I'm not going to do anything Jonathan asked. Well, you know, I thought about it, but that was really hard stuff. Because for me, it gets down to freedom. And what are the freedoms? Scientific freedom. That's the freedom to inquire. That's the freedom to learn about creation. Religious freedom. What's that? That's the freedom to experience the divine, to learn about the Creator. And personal freedom, which is the freedom of self-exploration, to learn about yourself. Now, most of you know the way drugs have been treated are at the core of the lack of freedom in these areas. So I thought about it, and I thought, well, the title that I might think of first is The 60s Ain't Over. Major effects of psychedelics on current art, science, and social justice. But that didn't really go very far, because the 60s aren't over, but it's a very narrow stream. But it's a living stream, which is better than we've been doing.